Can you imagine that? Married 60, almost 64 years, and
it's been great.
Yeah. So what are the keys? I mean, so many people today they don't have anything like that.
Your mother and I have been buddies, friends, lovers, and we just enjoy being with each other. That I make sure that we go out for breakfast every day. You know, people look at us and they can just see we're over there. We're laughing about things. We kid back and forth. We enjoy each other, and it's a blast.
Hi, and welcome to Stuttering Your Way to Success with Erik Weir. I'm here with one of my mentors, one of my favorite guests, and someone I call Dad, my father, Brian Weir. Welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you very much, son. And it's really been the highlight of my life, being your dad, and it certainly has kept me on my toes.
Hasn't always been easy. Haven't I done some things to some property of yours and things along the years that were exciting?
Well, easy was never a word we used a lot. Pursuing, but it's been an absolute fabulous experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And and the thing is that we started off so young, and it was, we just, participating in you in things that you were doing, all the way to watching you in karate classes as you took the karate classes, and then you becoming the instructor in the karate classes. And then me being harassed into taking karate classes.
Yeah.
And that was, but I enjoyed every bit of it. The bruises, the hurt joints, and so forth. But it was something that, I can look back on with fond memories.
I remember you as a fan. I remember one of my first big karate tournaments that I was fighting, and I'd done well, and I was fighting the Southeastern champion.
You were really doing well too.
And I got the first points in, and I was surprised because you'd line up and you line up next to your competitors, and I did a spinning back kick, and I caught him on a jump, so I folded him in half in the air, and I was so thrilled with that. And I remember him giving me a very unhappy look after that, and my father screaming, "Lay down, lay down." And I remember being like, that's the man I admire the most is telling me pretty much to surrender and lay down. He's coming down through the bleachers. Lay down, lay down, lay down. And it really, I got to tell you, I've been pretty focused in life, but that really derailed me. And I remember looking at him thinking like, don't kill me. So I was ahead. It was one of those times.
Well, I did start down to the mat.
Yes.
To be sure that the instructor wouldn't turn on you, and but anyway, it all turned out well, and
yeah, that was a fun time.
And it was, Dad did not come down and embarrass you.
No, I did hear the voices though. Now, what was it like? I mean, you were born in 1938. And you were born in Canada. What was it like? What was it like in Canada? And then you moved to America. What was that like? You moved from Canada.
Well, I'll tell you what. Being born in Canada, it was cold. We'll get that out of the way right off the bat. But it was, it was. You accept it as life. You don't know any difference. There were, when I was born, of course, there were. We didn't have the TVs and everything in my. I know on the weekends when we had some program on the radio, my sister and I would both lay on the living room floor and we'd stare at the radio and listen to Big John and Sparky or whatever other show was on. But it was we enjoyed it very much. My dad was a very hard worker, and I didn't have an opportunity to spend a lot of time with my dad. My dad would, hold down a couple of jobs, and it was a tough time. I mean, it was, I was a young child during the war, and my dad was unable to serve in the service because he had a fractured skull, and they wouldn't accept him in the military. And so my dad was involved in supporting the troops and what was available there in Canada. But no, we didn't have the play parks and things like that up there when I was a kid. The street was our play park, and we lived in a fourplex, and we're thankful that we lived on the second floor because the people below were constantly beating on the ceiling with a broom that we would hush up. But and I can't tell you how many times that I was chased hollering for my parents to open up the door because somebody was after me. And it was usually somebody else's father. But it was, I played a lot of ice hockey. My dad played pro hockey. When he was a young man, he played for the Montreal Canadiens, and I had, visions of going ahead and playing pro hockey myself. And I played on, a number of teams up. I played left wing. I remember that position, and that was the only one I really wanted to play. But in the wintertime, you put on your ice skates and you took them off. My mother wouldn't let us wear them to bed, so we'd have to take them off on the as we came in the door downstairs. And we took the skates off and made sure they were on a rubber pad as the ice would melt off them. But we skated everywhere. Those were really, got up in the morning, didn't put boots on or anything else, put the skates on. Skated in the street, skated on the sidewalk, and just skated. That was it.
Well, that had to be a big adjustment when your family moved from Canada to California. So it's interesting. I guess I'm the first generation born in America on your side, anyway. So what was that like going from Canada, where you're skating, to you moved to Northern California?
Yeah, it was really great because we moved there in January. And so we got to leave all the snow and ice behind, and moved to the Bay Area, and it was nice. I was able to get my get a bike and just pedaled everywhere, getting to know the area and so forth like this. And one of the first things I ended up doing was get a job delivering newspapers just to make pocket money. I was never big on going around and, asking for money. I wanted to earn my own. And so that's what I did. And as a matter of fact, up in Canada, I used to go around collecting bottles at construction sites and load them up in the buggy and take them all the way up to the store to cash them in. So, I've always had the work ethic and the same work ethic that you have today. And it's, you didn't wait for somebody else to do it for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I learned that from you. And I know, growing up in an entrepreneurial family, that a lot of our listeners, you have successes, you have setbacks. And one of the things we talk about is perseverance and pushing through, but realize there's no success without setback. You may remember lots of setbacks. Or there's some that you had a setback and you had to start over that you want to share, or comfortable sharing with our listeners.
Well, I decided that I wanted to move all of you, the whole family, up in the country. So we moved to a small town called Quincy, California, and I started up a wholesale produce business supplying schools and hospitals, and also I had the proverbial fruit stand on the side of the road that people could drive up and when we. That was, I used to go down to the Bay Area every once a week, and then go to the produce market at about 4 in the morning and buy everything I needed and load it up on the truck, and with that, your mother would have opened the produce stand, and so the people could buy, and we made it work, and it. I realized that you couldn't make the kind of living that I wanted for my family, and so we ended up we sold the business, but providing was not something I did a lot of second guessing about. I just did it, and it's worked out.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, are there any funny stories about I remember as a kid growing up and seeing us doing really well, and then seeing a setback, and then seeing us actually. I mentioned this in Who's Eating Your Pie. Next thing you know, we drive across the country. We're living with family, and then you found a business, right?
Yeah.
And that business becomes successful, and you sell the business. So, what was that like, knowing that you hit bottom? A lot of people are concerned now about a recession and things of that nature we may be facing. What was it like to hit bottom, and what was it like to come back? And from a kid looking in, I never knew we didn't have anything. It was never missed a meal, never missed anything. Actually, look back at that time with fond memories. I think you violated some child labor laws, though, and oil changing and things. I got my arm twisted into. I thought that payment.
Child labor laws.
I thought that payment was a soda or candy. I didn't realize that there were laws that you're probably violated wholeheartedly. But tell me about your starting your company.
Yeah, there are laws about that?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well, luckily, I'm not in violation of any of the child labor laws at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But it was tough. I mean, I remember we ended up with a business. We moved to northern. Before it was all a process. But we moved up to Northern California and outside of Redding, California, and I opened up a business up there. And, I opened up a truck repair business, and also went ahead and contacted Hertz Truck Rental, and I became a dealer for them, and started moving along in that respect. And it worked out well. Sometimes there's parts of it that you want to forget in your life as you, and But I'll tell you what, I contacted every trucking company around, and I was renting the trucking companies' backup trucks to use during the peak of summer. I made contracts with the Forest Service and supplied them with vans for them to move, supplies up during the forest fires and things like this. And so we never overlooked any opportunity that was out there, and we eventually decided that, why don't we, how about if we move to the south? And, and that was a good move. We came to the south and opened up for a trucking company. We opened up the whole southeast for Pacific Intermountain Express that had never been here before, and set them up, hired the drivers and what have you, and took delivery on all the equipment and what have you, and it was a success, and because of that, I was offered other positions with other companies, and eventually I ended up with Walmart Logistics, and I went with them and opened up distribution centers around the country and supplied all the areas that I supplied all the transportation for everything they needed. I'd have up to 300 drivers and a lot of equipment, and we take it all the way from, Northern California all the way up to the Canadian border. And that's the way that happened. But it was interesting. And then one day, let's see, I seem to remember retiring.
That was a short retirement, right?
Yeah, I'd served my time with Walmart, and I went ahead and retired, and I had an income from them, and it was it was really good. And after 3 days, the phone rang, and somebody said, "Hey, Dad," and made it sound like I was about to step onto a vacation time. Why don't you come with me? Work with us as a family, and you can work 3 days a week.
Oh, how'd that work for you?
Yeah. And so I figured that after a while that Erik was really stuttering because he meant to say, 5 days a week, but it came out 3. And, but anyway, I never did see 3 days a week, and I saw more 5 and 6. But it's been a blast. I can't believe it that 20 years went by so fast from answering that phone call, and like Walmart, we transferred a lot of different places.
We did. That's true. That's true.
We were in the Bay Area. We were in Tahoe. And then we came here to the South, and we just then the business continued to grow and grow, and I have a lot of fun building houses, developing areas. It's been a wonderful opportunity, and it's truly been the highlight of my working life. To think though that I would have spent 20 years doing this, well, it won't do any good to knock my head on this table. But 20 years.
It's a lot, right?
20 years is a lot.
That is. It's been great having you. It's been lots of fun.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from you. One of the things you came in, you're I guess you were brainwashed by Walmart, and you were trying to bring in an austerity program that trying to change the hotels we stayed in into more Walmart-approved hotels, and
Yeah.
that was quite uncomfortable at first. So we're still reeling from that some 20 years later. But growing up with you, one of the things that was always consistent is you would say, family matters, family comes first. You've got you got your family. Explain to me why that was important to you, and what does that mean to you?
Well, family always came first. I mean, with ours, and my dad worked, so many of the times, a couple of jobs, but family always came first, and it, he didn't do a lot of traveling. He was an engineer. And, frequently they would ask him to go to another location for a short time to train some additional people in some of the engineering aspects of maintaining equipment and things like that. But no, my dad was always, he was there, and we always look forward to the wintertime because my dad would always load my sister and I up on a sled and take us through the snow and so forth like this. And but he was a good dad, and he did what he could. And times were different then, But thank God, my mom and dad were able to retire to Palm Springs, bought a home down there, and enjoyed many years down there. And eventually, their health played out on them. And we brought them to live with us. And they lived with us for a number of years, and then from there we were able to have them in a nursing home that was close by. Your mother never missed a day going by to see how they were doing in a nursing home. And as a matter of fact, she'd leave at midnight and go up to the nursing home just to see if somebody was going to be there watching out for your grandparents
Oh, it's quite a
and making
commitment.
sure that they were comfortable and everything.
That's great. Well, growing up with you, I remember your word was you always say your word's your bond. You know,
Yeah.
say what you do, what you said. I've seen you actually come home and lose a job over your principles.
Yeah.
You lost a job, and that was one of the times we started over as a kid. I remember like, wow, that's interesting, but you put that in us, and so I thought I've always respected that about you. And you've got a big day coming up soon, next month, 64 years of marriage. So can you imagine that? You've married almost 64 years, and
It's been great.
yeah. So what are the keys? I mean, so many people today they don't have anything like that. And you've lived in multiple states. You've been through ups and downs. You've been through highs and lows. You've been without jobs. You've had assets that were there then weren't there, and then you've been royal flush. You've had everything. So what's the key? What are some of the keys that we're listening to today that can lead someone to be married 63, 64 years?
Well, the big one is yes, dear. But once you have that down, no, it's we were, your mother and I have been buddies, friends, lovers, and we just enjoy being with each other. I mean, we still go out every day, and your mother's prepared meals for so many years that I make sure that we go out for breakfast every day. And, people look at us and they can just see we're over there, we're laughing about things, we kid back and forth, we enjoy each other. And it's a blast.
It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. You walk by couples, and you see them eating and just staring at each other or looking away or looking at their phone. You guys are always laughing. I've joined you for over 100 breakfasts, and they go to the same place, by the way. If you're local, Stacks. It's like they know them when they're there. They come on Easter Sunday, they get a table right away. This is one meal a day minimum at this restaurant, so it's like a club for them. But it's so funny. I walk in to join you. Everybody knows you, and you're always talking. Now you have grandchildren. And you've also talked about connectivity. So a lot of us, listeners, are parents or grandparents. What's the value of a relationship, and how do you stay connected to another generation? I mean, just the
Well,
kids
you do
and their
things.
teens.
You make things happen, and include them as part of it. Like I don't know whether I said it or not, but I make a point of taking every grandchild to breakfast by themselves, so that the whole time is spent with them. And we talk about them, just like this morning, talking with Matthew. And, and then bringing him out to the car and opening the trunk of the car as he was leaving. And he has a choice of we keep like 10 bags of popcorn in the back of the car. And he says, grab a couple, and he grabs those. And here he is. I mean, he's a grown man walking off with the popcorn under his arm. And he says, are we going to be able to eat again this week before I leave town? and we're set up. And so Saturday, we're meeting with Matthew again, and we're meeting with your brother Mark, and we're meeting with Catherine, your brother's daughter. And so we're keeping it together. And it doesn't happen by itself. You got to get out there and make it happen. And of course, the other sons, your other grandsons they're the same too. They get included in, not all together,
Right.
but one at a time.
So it's intentional. You're intentional to maintain
Absolutely,
relationships.
absolutely.
Okay.
It's the way to do it, because then you don't have a grandson and a granddaughter sitting with each other. Oh, I've been doing this, and no, I'm gonna, and they're not competing. It's what they have to say and tell us about what's going on in their lives, and that's important. Yeah.
That's great. Maybe I'm listening to this, and I learn from you every time I'm around you. So that's fantastic. And what you've been in leadership. You've been with Fortune 500 companies. You've been to Fortune 50 companies. You've had hundreds and hundreds of employees and lots of direct reports. You've served in the military. A lot of things have gone on in life. So how do you transfer values? I mean, you saw how you maintain a relationship, but how do you transfer values to people in this day and time?
I tell you what, it's just conversation. You have to talk to people, and you have to do it face to face. It's not done on a cell phone, and it's not done in a letter directing, but it has to be done face to face, and especially the big changes. You know, I mean, I've stood in there in front of 300 men and tell them about changes that were going to be occurring with the company, and wanting to hear feedback from them. And many felt encouraged to be able to stand up and say, well, we've been concerned about this. And that one thing that they'd be concerned about may answer a question for 50 other men, 50 other drivers, and it just makes a difference. And they want to be able to see your face. They don't want to get a note down from somebody saying, from now on, you do this. From now on, you take a 45-minute lunch instead of an hour or any of this stuff. Stand face to face with them and nose to nose if you have to, and tell them this is the way it's going to be. But you tell them in a way that you're doing it with dignity and respect. And I think that's lost in so many ways that people communicate nowadays.
Well, dignity and respect, and being intentional. That's great. I remember as a kid growing up, when I was younger, and you know, we would have a time. You were very, very key around meals together. And today it seems to have pivoted to breakfast. You know, it's been there for some time, but it used to be dinner. You know, breakfast is a new thing. Maybe not that new, maybe 20 years, but it used to be we have dinner together as a family.
As a family.
No television. We're going to see how it went every day, and always have friends over.
We would talk and we would laugh and everything else.
So why was that important? You know, my friends would come over. They felt comfortable at the house. I always had, 2, 3, 4 people, but I remember being inclusive. So why was it important for you to create an environment that other people wanted to be around? And that cost money, right? You had to buy food.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I never thought of it as to create an environment that people would just want to be around. I never thought of it that way. I thought of it just including people in our lives. And just like your friends, I mean, we used to have, it was the hangout in the neighborhood. And, a lot of people thought we had 4 sons. I mean, they were there all the time, and then when they started driving cars, there was no place to park on our side of the street. But we, and to this day, if we were to pick up the phone and we were just saying, hey, we're going to have a family reunion in this time here, I know they would all drive up from Atlanta to be here.
There's no doubt. They ask about you all the time. I remember as a kid, we began reading the Bible in the home. We did that in the evening. We do before we went to bed. Why the Bible, and why was that? Why do you think that was important?
Well, because the Bible really had of course, the words of God, but provided so much direction in our lives, and we used to do it in front of the fireplace. Just because that was the only place to really sit around in the house. And we do it at night. And we would, we'd all, and then we'd discuss, what did you hear in that? Is there a message in there that and we would have a conversation. But, and then there were other times when, it was over with and everybody would,
right,
all gone.
Yeah. Right.
So, it was just a matter of trying to teach our friends children. I mean, we were
Yeah, they were there too,
not
yeah. My friends were,
infringing
yeah.
upon their parents' rights, but we were doing things in our house that we do at our house. Period. And
That's true. So what inspires you today? What inspires you?
I'll tell you what. Just the things that inspire me are just, number one, your mother, and it's not a pushy kind of inspiration, but we love each other, and I believe that we probably say I love you a good 10, 12 times a day.
That's true. I can testify to that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it just, having life with your mother is just a wonderful thing for me, and it's all I look forward to every day, is just getting up and being with your mom.
That's fantastic. That's
And-
beautiful.
And I also know that if I don't include her in what's going on that day, there'll be trouble on the horizon.
Be some consequences, right?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
But
funny.
no, we just enjoy each other very much, and we have humor in everything that we do, and we love to laugh and kid around.
Now remember, even in bad times, you always had humor. Or if we lost something, well, we don't have to watch that anymore, or whatever it happened to be, right?
Yeah.
Or always, and oftentimes deprecating humor.
Listen, I remember bad times when we used to go down and take a bath in the creek.
Yeah. That's a bad time, right?
That's a bad time.
That's it. That's it.
That's when you don't have a bathtub.
Yep.
That's what you do.
That's what you do. That's right. Well,
And those fish can tickle you.
that's right. I bet. So if you could go back in time and meet your younger self, I always ask everybody this: what would you tell yourself if you go back 65, 70 years and meet yourself? What would you tell yourself?
God, that many years?
Yeah, 15 years, maybe 5. I don't know. What would you tell your younger self?
I just man, that's a tough one. I could say listen to your mother, and read your Bible every day, and think about what it really tells you. Mom and I try to every night sit down and read the Bible and read the Word, and we don't always accomplish it. I mean, it's there are things that pop up that and suddenly we look at each other and we say, "God, it's so late," But I think just being honest with yourself about things like that, and just pursuing it, Did I answer the question?
Yeah, perfect. Yes, that's fantastic. Looking back at times with kids, I have 5 sons. I've had them do all kinds of different things. What was it? You remember you had a company car, and a lot of people don't let people use their company car, and I'd use it. Anything ever happen with your company car?
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you what, there's nothing like having a company car, and it's just great. And especially when the company has said, you go on out and choose the car that you want. And instead of a company car, you get a four-door sedan that's kind of blah, but go out and get one so I did, and went out and got a 2-door Monte Carlo, and pretty slick looking and everything, and everybody liked it, especially my son, who probably took it out and totaled it. So the first thing I did was make sure we had insurance on it, and because we'd only had it 4 days.
That's right. That's true.
And that was good.
I remember that was my second car wreck that I remember vividly. And I remember being T-boned and all my friends wearing neck braces.
That's right.
After that at the hospital. So it was a wild time. And you were, for towing a new car with less than 500 miles on it, you were very gracious. There was another car wreck.
Yeah, company car. Yep.
Company car.
Yeah, we never had to worry about selling company cars.
Isn't that good? That's a good way to go. There you go. Your humor. Never worry about selling company cars.
Yeah, they never had to sell them. No.
Well,
We sold them for salvage, but we never
that's right.
sold them as a car.
It's an easier market. You don't have to worry about all the haggling.
much better. Yeah, they'd all pick them up. Couldn't drive them away.
Was $250 kind of a standard price? It makes it easy.
Oh yeah,
That's good.
They jump at the opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There was a wreck that affected my life when I was 5 years old. I remember I was in a wreck, and I remember coming home and after that wreck and having a stutter.
That's right.
And I remember you taking me, and what was it like, discovering that stutter? And I remember you investing lots of time and taking me to speech therapists, and you and Mom doing all that. But what's it like seeing a child's life just hit, boom, you speak normally, and then it takes you 2 days to say your name? What was that like?
Well, it's really it's shocking. It really is. But it's not something you express to the child.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that you can only tell them that. We're going to get this taken care of, and then you begin to do something about it. I stuttered as a child, and I didn't have a car wreck to do it, but I stuttered as a child. And I used to have a problem. I'd stand up in class, they'd ask me to read in French. I was in Canada, read something in French, and I had the hardest time. And that started my stuttering, and then but I eventually was able to get over it after a number of years. Yours was caused from a different situation, and thank God we were able to get the kind of treatment and therapy that we needed, that you needed. Nobody ever teased you about it or anything like that.
Well, he teased a lot as a kid. The family never ever teased me,
but
for
the
sure.
family didn't.
No, it was awful in school. But the family was very encouraging. In fact, one of the most amazing things about it is you were talking about how to, I think the therapist said to put me in situations or where I had to talk, which was horribly uncomfortable. And I had the first lemonade stand. And I had to point to my sign, and it was interesting how people would always ask. I made a sign, lemonade 50 cents, and I couldn't say, Erik Weir, E's and W's are hard, and F's are ridiculously hard. And I'd point to it. They said, well, how much is it? And I'm like, 50 cents. And I remember being so excited at learning that I never got paid 50 cents. I was given $1 to $5 because they tipped me because of the stutter.
Yeah.
And I also remember having a big day, and the second day I had a big day. I ended up selling all the glassware. What was it like coming home and knowing that I was an entrepreneur and sold all your glasses?
Sold all the glasses that we had. Yeah. Well, I guess your mother probably best described that by going, "What?" And but we bought all new glasses the other day. The people did not bring them back. And they were all pleased, and many of them still have those glasses to this day.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. So who were your mentors? I mean, you worked at Walmart. You worked with some of the great leaders. Sam Walton was there at one point in time. Then you had all the different people who ran Walmart. Who are people that you learned from?
I tell you what, I learned more from one man, and by the name of Tony Motoshaw, and. He was with Navajo Freight Lines, and he was my regional manager. And he was always there to, if I had an issue, he'd guide me through it, and he was able to help me. And I even, he helped me negotiate contracts and things like this with the Teamsters Union. And because of him, I just gained the confidence that I needed to be able to do that, to eventually go on my own and, go to places like Chicago where the Teamsters are have a lot of notoriety, and I would actually, negotiate the contract with the Teamsters. And I found out that an awful lot of the contracts by the Teamsters were negotiated in private. They were not, in front of all the men, and they're all voting on it and all this kind of stuff. But there was a pre-agreement on a personal basis of what the company was willing to do and what the union was willing to accept, and to go through all that. And it was the union's job at that point then to go and sell it. But Tony Motorshaw gave me a lot of the direction and help that I needed. And,
That's great. I remember growing up, this is back in the days of the cassette tapes. You had probably 100 different collections of books on tape.
Yep.
And you were an early adopter of that, because you drive with 30, 45 minutes to an hour each way. And I remember Zig Ziglar, I remember Harvey Mackay, Swim with Sharks and Not Get Eaten, art of communicating or positioning. So why did you do that? And then are there things you'd recommend to somebody today to listen to or to read?
Well, there's a lot of good men out there that have these courses that, I'm not familiar yet. I mean, today with today's market and who's out there doing it, but there's an awful lot to learn from other people, and that's the thing. You have to believe that other people are able to go ahead and you have to be receptive to what they're saying. They don't have to be the ones to give you the total ABC, but maybe you can use the A and the C and not the B in what they're talking about. And it's really just knowing that other people are there that can teach you. And then, of course, I read a lot of books, and that helps. It really does. So there's an awful lot of knowledge out there that if somebody's interested in gaining insights into how to handle different things, whether they be union negotiations or whether they be mergers or selling an entire company, this type of thing. There's books out there and people that can make you familiar on what to watch out for, be careful, do this and do that. And don't sign anything until you review it with your lawyers.
Sounds like good advice.
Yeah.
It's like good, really good advice. So one thing I've learned from you also is being a lifetime learner, and we were just saying stuff. The A's and the A, B, C, learn A and C, and I think that's something that's I've learned from you and from Mom is just you can always learn something from just about everybody in life, and to always be on the lookout of how you can learn and how you can improve yourself.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we want to do with Setting Your Way to Success is what are setbacks you've had? What have you learned? How did you have a 64-year marriage? How do you communicate? How do you do things together?
Yeah.
And those are the things that we're interested in learning more and more about. And it reminds me of why I was asked. I was at Chuck Norris Studios doing I was a black belt there, and before I was a black belt, I was younger, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 years old, and at that time, he had a movie coming out, Chuck did, called Lone Wolf McQuade, and he was, marketing it, and they still have the sticker at the house that has, a donkey kicking, and he asked the question, all the kids, and we're all, different ages, 11, 12, 13 years old, who do you want to be like when you grow up? At that time, it was, Sylvester Stallone was Rocky, right? And then you had all the different major actors. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I want to be like this person or that. And I went around and I said, I want to be like my dad. And they stopped. They're like, what? You want to be like your dad? And they were like shocked by that. And I remember saying, the next book I write, you're the only person that's ever done that. And as I talk to you and go through this show, I know why I said that at age 13, because it's still true today. So it's wonderful to have you on the show today, Dad. It's
Thank you so
I continue to
very
learn
much.
from you. every time we speak, and try to emulate so many things. I've learned from you about overcoming obstacles, pitfalls. Hearing you today talk about even today, like why don't you have you have 6 grandchildren? Why don't you have all 6 together? You have one at a time, so you have one-on-one time. And it seems
That's right.
like
And by the way, they're like their dad. When I do take them all out for breakfast, they let me buy.
they still do that. That's a confession. To this day, my father buys me my meals, and I'm grateful for that. And it's funny. It used to be I'd leave my wallet in the car. I was younger.
Yeah.
All right, I'm a little.
Or you get up and
shortchanged.
leave.
Yeah,
right in the middle
that's
of
a patented move. That's a
I mean,
I got to
you're-
leave for a meeting.
You're really
yeah.
fast on your feet.
Yeah.
That karate has helped you a lot.
Well, thank you for that. But that is true. That is true. You've bought your fair share of meals, so thank you for that. But continue to learn even now. Like it's going to be payback someday. I'll be buying. I bought my own kids quite a few meals along the way.
Is that a promise?
Yeah. Well, Dad, thanks for coming on the show today. Again, I hope our listeners have learned something from you as I have. And thank you for joining us today on Stuttering Your Way to Success.
This has been my pleasure. This is really great. I truly love this, and I tell you what, the environment that is created right here is just like a father and son being able to sit down and talk,
That's great, Dad.
and that's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Good having you on. And the only guest I ever say that, I love you.
I love you, sir.
Great. Thank you so much.